There are those, of course, who insist on a literal understanding, and hence they're waiting for the mountain or the metal to come out from underneath the river. But we say no, it is religious symbolism. And in 1974, an ocean of oil underneath the river began to function as a mountain of gold. An ocean of oil underneath the river Euphrates began to function as a mountain of gold. When? How? When Henry Kissinger got King Faisal to agree to this amazing request that oil should be sold. What an arrogant request. What an arrogant request. That oil should be sold for only US dollars. And they say, we are the people who have given you the free market. Really? Is this a free market? Have you no shame? Have you no shame? Is this a free market? That if I want to buy oil with gold, I cannot buy it. Even with gold. I can't buy it with anything else other than US dollars. When Faisal agreed to that, and then he got the other Arab oil producing countries to agree, and then OPEC came into being as the greatest achievement of the Zionist movement. And OPEC also instituted this. Then something came into being called the petrodollar. And the prophecy of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam materialized. But he said they're going to fight over that mountain of gold. Watch it, what the Prophet said. That fight is coming into being now. That fight is about to take place because of BRICS. Because BRICS is a threat to the petrodollar monetary system. And Russia is the leader of BRICS. Without Russia, China would not be there. And without Russia and China, forget it. India and Brazil and South Africa are just little boys. And so, from our eschatological perspective, the big war is coming. And we can see and understand there's going to be the war over the mountain of gold. And so Ukraine is a sideshow. Syria is a sideshow. The mountain of gold is the cause of the war. In order to maintain their rule over the world, they must maintain their rule over money. You cannot rule the world unless you rule the world of money. And you cannot rule the world of money so long as mankind is using gold and silver as money. No. You've got to get rid of gold and silver as money because this is money with intrinsic value. This is real money. And you've got to replace it with something called monopoly money. Someone else called it toilet paper money. One of the reasons why they want to rule the world of money and hence rule the world is because of a messianic interpretation of history. Christianity, Judaism and Islam all say the same thing. That the historical process is going to end with the Messiah. And the Messiah will rule the world from Jerusalem. But before the Messiah rules the world from Jerusalem, there is one who will seek to impersonate the Messiah. He's known as the Antichrist. In Islam, he's known as Dajjal. I'm writing a book on Dajjal now, but some of you don't want me to finish this book. So many emails. So I have to keep on replying. I regret I cannot respond while I'm writing my book. In order for him to successfully impersonate the Messiah, he has to rule the world. He has to rule the world. And he has to rule the world from Jerusalem. But the Messiah was not sent to the American people. Nor was the Messiah sent to the Swiss. The Messiah was sent to the Israelite people, the Jews. And so they have to be convinced that you are the Messiah if you want to make a claim. In order for him to convince the Jews that he is the Messiah, and if you've read Jerusalem in the Quran, you'll be familiar with this eschatological analysis. Number one, he has to liberate the Holy Land for the Jews. He couldn't do that so long as the world of Islam had a caliphate. So long as the world of Islam had Darul Islam, one consolidated mass, a mighty army. So in order for him to liberate the Holy Land, he has to get rid of the caliphate. He did it with exquisite design. Exquisite design. An institution which has been there in the world of Islam for 1400 years. How to get rid of it? It is part of the deen, the religion, how to get rid of the caliphate. And then get the Muslims to forget the caliphate. Of course, that's what television does. What it did was to create the Ottoman Empire, Dajjal. If you are a supporter of the Ottoman Empire and you cannot as yet read history, I suggest you go back and study your book. The Ottoman Empire was then empowered with a power that could not be matched by its enemies. No. Where did it get that power from? And then the Ottoman Empire expanded until it took Arabia and took Mecca and Medina and then claimed the caliphate and carried it to the capital city of the Orthodox Christian world. There are many things that are strange that occurred in history. This one beats them all. To take the capital of the world of Islam and go and pack it up in the capital of the Orthodox Christian world, this one beats them all. And then when the Ottoman Empire collapsed, the Caliphate collapsed with it. That was the grand design. In order for them to be able to liberate the Holy Land, they had to break up the world of Islam. And that's what happened with the First Great War. The First Great War, the First World War, from an eschatological perspective, achieved these objectives. It got rid of the Caliphate, and it broke up the world of Islam into bits and pieces at mutual war with each other, antagonism with each other, and gave it a virus called nationalism. And this virus caused them to have rivalry with each other. Exquisite planning, incidentally. Exquisite planning. The First World War, therefore, allowed them, a British army, to conquer Jerusalem. And guess who the British had fighting with them in the British army? They had Arabs. They had, today it's called Pakistan. They had many Punjabis fighting in their army. Oh yes. I mean, you have to give Jack his jacket. The British were brilliant. Brilliant in making fools of these people. And they're doing it again today now with ISIS. Not only did the First World War achieve this objective of neutralizing the world of Islam, but there is another threat to them. And that comes from another part of the Christian world which has an equal claim to Jerusalem. And that's the Orthodox Christian world. And guess what happened in the First World War? We don't have the time to go through that history tonight. But they were able to neutralize the Orthodox Christian world. That was the Bolshevik Revolution. That was communism. And that was the world's first atheist state, which waged war on the Orthodox Christian people, destroying their monasteries, destroying their churches, killing them, slaughtering them, pushing atheism down their throats. That was the Soviet Union. And so both the two possible threats to them were neutralized. The First World War. Was it 20 million Russians were killed in the First World War? Then came the Second World War. If we look at it from an eschatological perspective, Britain now has control over the Holy Land. Britain is the mandate power. And while pretending to keep the European Jews out, Britain is allowing them in. Before Israel could be born in 1948, you had to have a Second World War. So the First World War had to come to an end in such a way that there's unfinished business. And so they imposed humiliating conditions on Germany in the Treaty of Versailles, I believe it was. And so they sowed the seeds for Germany to want revenge, for a Hitler to emerge eventually, because the German people felt very, very, very much hurt over the unjust way they were being treated. When the Second World War took place, the objective of the Second World War is, number one, to allow the State of Israel to come into being. But before the State of Israel comes into being, you must have a United Nations organization and a Security Council for world government to protect Israel. World government to protect that baby who's about to be born. You need the International Monetary Fund for the financial slavery that we now have. So they had all of these things put in place at the end of the Second World War. The Second World War was also fought in order to open the door for millions of European Jews in the Soviet Union and other parts of Eastern Europe to migrate to the Holy Land, to Israel. But when people are comfortable where they are living, how do you get them to leave? How do you get the French Jews to leave France and go back to Israel? They don't want to go to Israel. The Jews who are living in France today, they don't want to go. So how do you get the Jews to leave France and go back to Israel? You've got to do something. I ask those who are Jews to think. If you're a Jew, I ask you to think. I want to look forward to the day when someone will write a proper history on Hitler, to connect Hitler with the master plan of creating an environment which will force the Jews and entice the Jews, assist the Jews to leave Europe, to leave Russia, and go to the Holy Land. And then you need a government in charge, in control, and that's what they had in the Soviet Union. The Bolshevik Revolution did not take place without their involvement in it. It was Russian Jews who gave us the Bolshevik Revolution. Wall Street had a lot to do with Bolshevik Revolution. This is history.